Welcome to lesson number 12 of Endgames you must know from beginner to master. And today we're going to be taking a look at the rook plus 2 pawns versus rook endgames. And the first one is central pawns, double pawns, black start, and they play white start. My apologies, my sincerest apologies. Rook goes to b7, rook g6, and we kind of try to play the Philidor position, but here we have also some stalemate tricks. Rook b6, rook goes to g4. That's a very critical move. That's what we saw in the KNH defense that I showed you in last lesson. d6, rook goes to g1. Now king goes to c6, rook c1 check. King goes to d5, rook h1. We're trying to get checks from the side. Rook b8, king d7, rook b7, king d8, pawn goes to d7, and now rook h5, king c6, rook h6, king c5, rook h5, and now once again, the Philidor kind of maneuvers rook h6. And it looks like d6, king c6 is coming. It is completely lost, but here black have a stalemate trick. They play rook d6, and now if king doesn't take, we'll take the pawn next move. If king takes, it's a stalemate. Let's get to the next endgame position. Knight's pawn, punishing, careless play. In the following example, simple move like rook b2 makes an easy draw. Because after rook a4, rook c2, we reach a Philidor position. Rook goes to b8, and we check from the side. But there was something that white decided to play rook b8. They tried to check immediately, but now it is a losing position for them. Rook a2, king g1, king goes to h3. Rook b3, g3, now checkmate is being threatened. Rook goes to b1, and now rook a3, trying to push g2 and start g5, g4, g3, rook f3, rook f1 maneuver and transpose to the winning pawn endgame. And that's exactly what happens. Rook f3, rook f1 is unstoppable, and black transpose to the winning pawn endgame. G-pawn promotes, black win the game. Let's get to the endgame number 71. Defending king cut off on the back rank. So king is on g8, we have f6, h6, black go rook g1, we go king f5, rook f1, and now king s6. King d6, king e7, king d8, and king e8. So we walked all the way from g5 to basically d8, and now the position becomes winning. Rook e7, rook f1, f7, king h8, and now f8 actually is a draw. Because f8, rook f8, king f8, it is a stalemate. So first you play rook e6, and only on the next move you promote. Black cannot stop this pawn from promotion. White wins the game. Let's get to the next example. Bishop's pawn on the 5th rank. So now white are threatening to play f5, f6, reaching the position in the previous example where white won. So in the following game, black tried to give some checks. Rook g1, king f6, rook h1, chasing the h6 pawn. Rook g7, king f8, king g6, white are trying to go king h7, and then push f6 and promote this pawn on h6. Rook g1, king h7, rook f1, rook a7, and now if black take on f5, king goes to g6, rook a8, h7, and the pawn will be eventually promoted. So rook g1, black are trying to cut this king from g5, f6, rook g2, rook g7, rook f2, king g6, and eventually what happens is black run out of checks. So let me try to show you. So rook goes to g2, king f5, rook f2, king goes to e5, and then rook e2, king d4, black run out of checks, h7, rook g8 is unstoppable, white wins the game. Let's get to the next ending 73. The defensive procedure. What I'm about to show you is very long, but I think it's very educational. Let's take a look at the following example. This was played in the endgame between Grigorich and Smyslov in Moscow in 1947. White played rook g6, king goes to f7, rook g5, rook goes to the first rank. Rook c5, king f6, rook c6, king g7, king g5, rook g1 check, king f5, rook goes to a1. Rook c7 check, king h6, rook e7. Of course, we cannot take the pawn due to rook h7 checkmate. Rook goes to b1. We're trying to check from the side, king g7, and just wait for what white will do. Rook a1, rook d5, rook f1, rook d4, rook a1, rook d6, rook a5 check, now king goes to g4, rook goes back to a1. Rook e6, rook g1, king f5, we come back, and now finally white tried to push. King h7, rook d6, rook a2, we're still waiting, rook g2 check, king f6, and now we only take on h6, and the position slowly becomes drawn. King h7, f5 check, rook a2, and we have this long side defense. f6, rook a8, bringing the rook to the last rank, trying to block the last rank access to the white's king. King goes to h6, rook e1, rook a7 check, rook e7, going back, king h7, once again check, rook a6, going back, and now finally it has a draw. We go rook a6, rook a5, checking from the side. The position finished in a draw. Let's get to the next endgame example. Blocked connected pawns. Most of the time, 2 connected pawns will be enough to win, but sometimes the attacking side might encounter some problems where those pawns might end up blocked. So in the following case, black can actually make a draw. So rook d4, rook b6, rook d8, trying to go rook g8 and trying to push pawns, rook goes to b4 check. King f5, rook goes to b7, and we're trying to take the pawn on g5. Rook goes to g8, king h7, and now rook e8, we go back to g6, attacking the pawn on g5, king f4, rook b4, king f5, rook b7, we reach the same position. It is a draw. Let's get to ending number 75. Attacking rook stuck in front of the 7th rank pawn. So in the following example, we saw the positions where white would only have this pawn on a7, but now they also have the pawn on g3, but it doesn't matter. The pawn on g file is a draw, because the technique is quite simple. We go rook a2, we go rook a1, and once king reaches b file, we start checking from the side. They want to move the pawn on g6, and if we take rook j8, a8 promotion, white win the game, but we of course don't have to take it. We just move back and forth, and it is a draw. Let's take a look at the final endgame position for this lesson. Let's go. Last position is Vancouver defense against 2 pawns, and in the following game, rook e4 is the only way to make a draw. So if rook a1 was to be played, trying to catch this pawn, king goes to f4, king h7, king f5, king g7, a5, king h7, a6, and we know it from the previous examples that we don't even need this h pawn to win this game. King goes to a7, rook b8, rook b7, king b8, a7, a8, queen promotes. So rook e4, we cut the king off, and we also try to catch this pawn. Pawn goes to a5, rook e5. Now king goes to f3, we go rook h5, trying to take this pawn. King goes back to g3, we go rook c5, a6, rook c6. If a7, we just go rook a6, and it is a draw. As we know from the previous examples, king goes to f4, king h7, king f5. So white are trying to bring their king to b7 and then get the rook out of a8 and go a7, a8, queen promotion. Rook b6, king d5, rook g6, king c5, rook f6, and now we start checking from the side. Rook f5, king b6, rook f6, and once this king gets from, let's say, to d4, we can just continue playing something like rook b6, and it is a draw. Hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. Hope you understood some of the concepts. You still gotta practice those endgames, because when you, let's say, face them in blitz games and rapid games, you still might make mistakes. But the more you play them, the more you know, the more chance you will actually defend or you will actually win the game. So that's it from me for today. In the next lessons, we'll cover something more exciting: pawn endgame. And pawn endgames are very tough, extremely tricky, so it will be interesting to see. There will be a bunch of lessons on them. Hope you enjoyed this rook endgames lessons. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.